Hi guys, welcome to another episode of A Student's Perspective. My name is Natalia Colasurdo.
And I'm Kristin Cussat.
And today we are here with, you guys want to introduce yourselves?
Charles Pavarini III from Pavarini Design.
And David Samad from Samad.
Awesome. So we are here in the Samad Rug showroom today at High Point Market, and we are excited to talk to you guys about your story and how you guys got here. So if you want to start off with some questions?
So, Charles, can you tell us a little bit about how you partnered with Samad?
I'd love to. I have agents that are creating these relationships for me. And they introduced me to David and Malcolm and Samad Rugs. And it was more of an instant relationship with connection.
That's it.
Yes. And, you know, that's so important when you're doing licensing, is that you have that connection with who you're going to design for, and vice versa. And that's a very, very important part, because if you don't feel it, it is very difficult to move forward with it. So that, again, goes back to passion.
And just feeling out certain situations, feeling out, I guess, the workplace and who you're working with and all.
Yes, and you know, I'm a true believer. Your first instinct is always the one to go with. Even if you look and go around the circle trying to educate yourself in other, that first instinct, you'll always come back to that. And with Samad, that instinct was immediate. And I feel that I've got a good partnership with Samad.
And same for us too. It's vice versa.
And it develops, you know, the more we talk, the more we present to them, the more they feed back to us, the better our relationship and that connection will be, the stronger it'll be.
And our understanding of one another's needs, it's also very highly important in that type of relationship.
Absolutely. I guess segueing off of that, do you mind telling us about the new hospitality collection that you two have gone in partnership with, and how that's working out for you, or if there's any out in the market yet?
There's not product out in the market yet.
Okay.
It's in development stages. And the one thing that I think that we all need to understand is this licensing and a partnership with a company like Samad, that's not immediate. That takes a lot of time, a lot of focus, and a lot of interaction with the partner. And you know, from you asked about hospitality. Well, hospitality, I feel, especially now, comes from residential, because we want that hospitality to feel warm and inviting. So a lot of that will come from the residential, and then you know, transgress that or transform that into hospitality. And that's something that we're working on.
David, did you always feel that hospitality was an area that you feel that your company needed to touch upon, and are you excited that now you are finally there?
We are there, and we've done several large projects all over the States and indeed the world. I mean, we've actually, it's a wonderful thing when we're given that project, when people come to us and say, right, we need 68 carpets made. And we now have a time limit as well, that we have to get them there, and it has to be all set. That's something that we are building up on, and I can see more and more in the future. That's the direction that we're heading in, and I hope that with Charles's help, that will increase in the coming years. It's almost like we're taking this residential look, and we're one can coin a phrase, residential. You know, it's a crossover between the residential look and the hospitality look. So Yep, we're proud of our position, and I can only see it growing in future.
Resumercial.
Commercial.
David, would you mind telling us about how Samad, the rug company, started?
Sure,
with you?
absolutely. Well, we started the company, when I say we, my brother Malcolm and I we formed the company in 1985. So next year, January, will be 35 years old in America. Although I was in the business 10 years prior to that. So it's been a long road. We started very small beginnings in New York City. We had a very small office. It was tough in the early days of Samad, but we worked very hard, and we are very proud of our accomplishments and how far we've kind of got to this point where our main head office is in East Rutherford, New Jersey, and we have 34,000 feet, which encompasses showroom space, offices, and warehouse. So that's our base. And then this is our brand new showroom here in High Point. We're also very happy to be here. And
That's right. I heard there's a ribbon ceremony
yes,
coming right
in
after
fact,
this.
very soon, in an hour or so, we'll have the ribbon cutting. And I don't think the mayor is coming, but we've got some dignitaries
Well, I
here, and
couldn't
we
think of a
certainly have
better
Charles here to be sharing that moment with us. And this rug, as Charles alluded to, this is a beautifully made carpet from Nepal. It has 25% silk and around 25% silk content. And if you look at the areas where it may not show, but the white areas here are where the silk is coming through. You can feel it.
Feel the difference of it.
Yeah.
That is
So that's kind of a little bit of a backdrop of how we're here today.
So going off of that, can you tell us what you think the future of the design, mainly in like the rug industry or design in general, where do you see that headed?
That's an amazing question.
That is an amazing question.
Well, let me start first, and then maybe Charles can add. I do see a really straight path to more and more custom, and we're gearing up for custom-made carpets. I think right now, simple designs are actually being well embraced, not so complicated, and there's a wide spectrum of traditional designs which seem to, in the last 10 years, I wouldn't say gone out of favor, because that wouldn't be correct in saying that, because there are certain areas of the country which are still really looking to buy traditional designs. But in some of the bigger cities, there's this tendency to transitional and to contemporary design. So with custom, the simpler the design is, what we can do, what we actually bring to the table is texture. So we can do various qualities with a cut and loop pile. We can introduce silks and various different wools. So we can make simple look very interesting as well. So that's my take on where we're heading. I think the old days of us going to countries to buy piles of stocks, that's really behind us. You can't do that anymore. You have to be laser focused. You have to know exactly where what you're doing, and you have to lead with coming up with creative designs and partnering with creative people above all else.
I guess that segues into trends. And like, how do you guys feel about trends? Have you guys always been ones to follow with the trends or keep up with? Are you guys always trying to keep up with, or I guess at least noticing, how even that shift to contemporary now? That's definitely an important move to realize in this industry.
That is happening, and we see that in the marketplace. A lot of the rugs that we're seeing are more contemporary. The whole industry, interior design industry, and the home furnishing is leaning towards more of a contemporary look. But as David mentioned, traditional is not dead at all. As a matter of fact, we're going to start seeing that come back. But when a type of rug or design comes back, it's always done in a different way because the times are different, the surrounding influences are different. So we are seeing that with traditional rugs, that there's differences in them. But rugs will never go out. I mean, they've been around for centuries, and they will continue to be that. And for a designer, the inspiration of a room often comes from the floor, from the rug first, and then the room is designed around that.
That's a really good key point. Start with the rug. I never thought of that. I feel like the misconception is, always then throw in the rug after, but I never realized that the rug is what ties it all together.
It is, and it's
like
a little bit
reflection.
more challenging for the designer to design a room and then go search for a rug
Yeah.
that will coordinate and work with the room. Because, rug is a piece of art that's on the floor. Here we're seeing, vertical, but all rugs are meant to be on the floor. So that is the layer that we often start with.
So going off of that, I'd like to hear about your inspiration for creating this rug collection and how the process went for you.
Or maybe even just specifically this rug behind us.
This rug behind us, when we first proposed a collection of hospitality rugs, and that didn't quite sit well with everybody at this time or the time that we were doing that. So I took a walk in Riverside Park in New York, and I was really thinking about what I can do that would be a little bit different. Because when you design in whatever capability or aspect, you want it to be a little bit different, if not a lot different. And the rug behind us, if you notice, there are tiles. And that is from a walkway in Riverside Park. And I stopped and had my head down, I was looking at it, and there were patches of moss within the rug. The walkway. And that was the inspiration. I took a picture of it, and then I took it back to the office. And I have designers that do all the CAD drawings, and we started working that. And then, through some programs that help designers design the rugs. One is Galantia, and that was new to us. We had to learn that, and this is all a learning curve for us because, at first I thought, do a design and they'll make it into a rug, but it's a lot more complex than that because of the different yarns that go into it. David mentioned silk. We're seeing a lot of rugs with silk in them now. And also, how do you color the rug? That's really a challenging issue because you want to color the rug so that it is contemporary in the manner that it's very today in its coloration and usable. I mean, you have to think of the end user. And how is this rug going to lay on the floor and a room be built around it?
I really like your way about going about inspiration. Kind of inspiration is all around us and in our everyday life. And I think that's something that we pull from every day. It reminded me of an artist who I saw speak, Andrew Smolden. He calls it staying true to unoriginality. And he basically, again, it's all about nature, whether that be just him looking at a staircase, and he takes that and he just pulls and adds to it and makes it his own. So that's exactly what we're doing here. We're adding texture, we're adding different colors, and you're making it your own. You're abstracting this tile from what once was a street, a walkway. And I find that's so beautiful. And that's exactly what we should do as designers every day, all around us. Anything that might look just so ordinary as on a table or glass, how can we make that ours? How can we turn that into something that's gonna pop and like, catch
Absolutely.
people. So it's very-
And I totally agree with you. Inspiration is all around us. All we need to do
Just to see
is
it.
keep our eyes open and our mind open to the inspiration. A few of the rugs that we did design for Samad came from a trip that we took to China. And again, I was photographing the walkways and the the stone inlays, etc. And we turned those, and with manipulation, we were creating new styles and new rugs.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Any other questions as far as when you were in school or your school background? How did you guys get into the rug industry itself, or like the design industry itself?
Okay.
Is it
well,
something that you always
that's
saw
we
yourself
we come
doing?
from two very different
Yeah.
places. So I was born in the UK, and although I've lived in the States for, my goodness, I think it's been about 38 years now. So the greater part of my life has been here in America. And I was very fortunate because my father actually was an importer himself of carpets. So my brother and I, Malcolm, we were born into this industry. It was something that we would go, every school holiday, we would go to his warehouse and we would jump around the carpet piles. And it's very much, it was kind of in our blood,
Yeah.
So, and being around all of that from an early age, it was something, by the time I was 18, I knew that I wanted to be in this business. And of course, I learned the business. This is the funniest part, is that my father didn't trust me enough to come into his business. He kind of forced me to go into another large company in London, which was probably the best thing he ever did for me, because I learned the ropes from every single aspect of the business, and then got to the point where I started to travel. And that's what really opened my mind, because there's something beautiful about traveling the world. In all the last, in business, it's been a long road for me, and I've covered over 6 million miles of air miles anyway. So, I've been doing this a long time, but there's not a day that comes by where I don't learn something new about the business. A lot of
That's
people,
interesting.
a lot of people think that, oh well, he's an expert. Be very wary of that, of the guy who says they're an expert, because I don't think you can ever get to the point where you know everything. So getting into the business, and then in '85, I told my brother, "Come on from London, we can do this. We can make this special." And we started. Our showroom was barely 400 square feet. I mean, it was smaller than this. And then we grew it. We worked hard on going on the road, selling, and then we would bring in carpets initially from China, and then we transferred our business mostly to India. We do these days about 95% of our business is originating from India. This is a very small percentage of carpets come from Nepal, but it is an area that we hope to grow into more. And again, with Charles's help and his keen eye, we hope that will become a strong business for us also.
Very nice.
So if you could go back to yourself when you were either like a student or just getting into your career, is there any advice or tips that both of you would have to your past self?
To my past self?
Yes.
Well,
Great question.
yeah, this is a really good question. I would, I don't have any regrets of what my path has been. I just would just keep my eyes open even more so, and listen and observe, because we learn from each other. And You know, as far as rugs and carpets are concerned, that is a major part of interior design. In whether it's commercial, hospitality, or residential, the ground that we walk on, we want it to have beauty to it. We want it to be soft under our feet at times. And it's a big part of a room. And as I said before, a lot of times it becomes the art of the room.
And Natasha, you mentioned before, oh, I never thought that we should start with the rug and then build the room around the rug. But that's, if you ask me that question about how, you know, as a young person, how you should look at things, that if more people realize that, it's a simple thing, that is really anchors the room. The carpet, I mean, we all come to, it can be a flooring as well, it can be anything that adorns the floor, but the carpet, if it is the center of the room, to build around it is so much easier, because that carpet may have taken 9 months to weave. You know, the wallpaper that's kind of easy. You can change that around, and
I think that's important for us to realize
Yeah.
how much time, how much effort goes into things like this. And
Yeah.
we can easily oversee just by the look underneath our noses that it's right there in front of us and realize what went into that. How
Yes.
did it?
And there are
become to come
hundreds
here.
of hands have touched that carpet before it even gets to us, and
It's a
so
beautiful
many
thing.
livelihoods are involved. So you know that when the concepts form from Charles's mind, and then he comes to us and say, "Hey, we're gonna form this relationship," and we also have to look at it from a business point of view, because you can be really creative. And as we all know from fashion, you know, you can see models walking down a runway in flouncy, dresses, but who wears that kind of stuff? You know, it's not that because there's a mainstream, and if you're to be successful, you have to be different, you have to be original, but you also have to
Realize what works. Yeah.
exactly. You've got to know what works, and what actually where the sell-through's coming. So it is a point where we have, once we come up, and I believe this rug behind us is a real winning rug for us, that we will create that path, and people will follow us. And we like to be considered as leaders. It's not an easy thing, because sometimes the leader in a race can also fall over and trip up. But you got to be brave to do it, and it takes a.
They think once you get to the
Strong
top,
will.
that's it, but that's not the case. It's all about fighting and staying at the top.
Yeah.
I think what David said about being brave is really a major issue, especially if you want to lead. You have to be brave to move forward with it and totally committed
Correct.
to what you're doing. And as David said, you know, it's not just designing beautiful rugs. Is how are those rugs going to translate to the buyer? And that is a big consideration. You know, some of the rugs that we designed and propose, the beautiful renderings, but can it sell in the market? Because, you know, no matter what we are looking at and doing, the bottom line is that this is for sale. And bottom line, and I teach and I tell my students that it's a business. You need to make money at the business. And when you're designing, you have to really keep into and be mindful that you're designing for another
The end user.
End
End user
user.
has to be in mind throughout each step of the process.
Yes, yes. You know, that all the way from texture to design to color. And I think color is a major issue when we're designing in this capacity of rugs. You know, what are the color trends? And what are the forecasts of color trends. Because as David said, rug could take 8-9 months. Well, what's happening with color at that point? So you need to continually look forward.
Look forward. I will remember
Yeah,
that. Look forward. I like that.
And keep your eyes open.
And
Yes,
keep your
and
eyes open.
We can easily look at something and you're like, okay, that's a tree, because we just know that's a tree, so we're just going to be looking at a tree. But I think we have to take out that whole idea that it's not a tree and then look at it abstractly. Like you were saying, it's not a sidewalk anymore, now it's something else.
Right.
And then from a production standpoint, we also have to, we believe there are certain designs that fit certain qualities. Rugs are made with square knots. I mean, the case in point with this particular rug, there are, in a square inch, there are 100 knots. So we call it 100 knot. That's what it's characterized at. But, without getting too technical, a very simple design doesn't need a very, very fine knot. There's a saying, the finer the knot, the finer the Persian. They used to, when Persian carpets were very popular. But it is true to an extent. So the old Persian traditional designs were very ornate. Often you'd see the design of a ceiling of a mosque that translated onto the carpet. Here, we're translating something entirely different. So you have a great visual. You don't necessarily have to have it in a very fine quality. So you can overkill it by making it too fine. And then the other point is, and when you talk of younger people, I have 3 young daughters, and their view of how rugs are could be different from what the older generation. I have to say I'm getting older now, but there's this constant need to feel that we have to be on trend and change colors, just as one does with fashion. So to keep up with that, I think the kind of message I'm trying to put over here is that it's better going forward for us to, there'll always be that top tier customer that doesn't mind waiting 9-10 months for the rug to be woven because they're fine, beautiful rugs. But I think the majority of the market beneath that, they want their rugs, maybe they can wait 3 months, So you see a lot of carpets being made in tufted, hand tufted. You see a lot of machine-made carpets in the market. And the good thing with these is they can be quickly sold. They can be sold inexpensively. So they get the trend of color and design. Yet in 7 years' time, maybe they'll throw it out. Because if a rug is that inexpensive, you can just afford to dispose of it. Now, I think what millennials tend to think, well, that's good. That's a good thing, but actually it's probably bad for the environment because you've got landfills filled full of, old rugs made of maybe perhaps viscous. Who knows?
Maybe there's a new industry in reusing of rugs and
Well,
tearing apart and taking
they
up.
do
They're
now.
starting that now.
Yeah.
Yes, there are
repurpose
some
them
people
and-
very aware of that.
But with rugs, you don't think of rugs as being disposable. You think of them in long
Lasting
term.
centuries,
Yeah,
yes.
long.
And there are rugs, antique rugs that are hundreds of years old, and the wear on them is the beauty of them. But as far as designing a rug like this, I lean towards Samad for the technique of it. I am a designer. I don't loom rugs. So I have a learning curve with Samad and with their help and their guidance on what are the capabilities. Where does a rug with a design like this, where are they having it manufactured? And, this is Nepal. And David would say, this rug, the design really needs to go to this manufacturer. So I'm leaning towards them on that. And as I said, it's a learning curve. And I personally want to learn as much as I can because no matter what aspect of design that we're working on, the more knowledge we have, the better we can design.
I like how you say learning curve. You're stressing that learning point. I think it's all something that we can all learn from. It's all about learning more about the whole entire business as a whole, not just a designer, not just a carpet manufacturer, but
Right.
combining the both of them, weaving the both of them, we can say.
Yes, that's right.
That's where success becomes.
Exactly. To
That's
be
where it
successful, you
really
have to know
lives.
both sides, because you can have a beautiful design, but the technique is what's gonna make that design more
Right.
successful. And
Because if this rug was fabricated in a different area, it would look a little bit different. You know, this is 100 knots, as David said. If it's different, it's going to appear to be different. So David and Malcolm, they know where to position the designs to get the best out of
Well,
it.
at least we do our best, but
Yeah.
sometimes we also make mistakes, not intentionally so, but mistakes. For example, we try to keep the price points at a certain level. Now, what Charles may not have understood initially was that every increase of percentage of silk in the rug adds on a really high number to the cost of the rug. So what I may, if I've now tapered down a certain use of silk in this case, that may have now changed the colors that Charles didn't have that in his original mind. So now the concept of the way the rug looks has changed. So I've altered what he really had in mind. So it's finding a balance of which weaving area to make the rug, keeping the balance in mind. I mean, we're so sensitive to price because our market is highly sensitive to price, unless you're in that very, very top end of the market, which is really, really a slither. I mean, it's not a big part of the market. We
And
have
it's
to
becoming more of a slither.
Yeah, it is. But that very, very top tier is I mean, even we feel it. But our hearts want to make very fine carpets in really fine knots and use color and texture. So we're finding our way, finding the right balance, and it doesn't just happen overnight. It's sometimes it's a work in progress. But I think we're getting, with every go-round that we do, we seem to get another step closer. And I think our relationship is also getting closer, and our understanding of one another's needs. And I think another important thing is, and Charles had mentioned to me, I really would like to come to Nepal. I'd like to come to India with you on your next trip. And that way he can have an appreciation of our world, and then we marry the two worlds together.
absolutely, I think that's an important thing that we stressed today was the whole point of traveling and seeing and opening up our eyes. Me and Kristin were fortunate enough to also do a study abroad program through our architecture school. We've traveled the world, all of Europe, and yeah, I think it's something that we can definitely take away. After seeing some of the architectures, the designs there, we now have a better appreciation for, and now we can take that into our own
Yes.
work and our own. So I
So you
think it's-
kept your eyes open.
Exactly. So yeah, I think it's all about finding that balance within any design work that we do and the push and pull, and I think it's all about also knowing who you are working with and then creating that and building up that
And there's also one
relationship.
other element involved, and that's passion.
Passion,
You
right?
have to have passion. You know, if you need one
That's
piece
major.
of
Yeah.
advice, you know, I know Charles exudes it, and we have passion in what we do. We sometimes, when we really believe in something, it doesn't always happen. You know, it's not always. We've had lines that we've launched, and it's been very slow. People slow to warm up to them, but then all of a sudden it takes off like a rocket. So you have to have a little belief in what you're capable of doing. Again, you can't get it right all the time, but our goal is to strive to do as
Yeah.
much as
Yeah.
possible.
Stay consistency, I think, is
Yes.
another important thing in order to be leaders and to kind of have a following. You need to be consistent with that and your confidence and your commitment, and that's what's going to grab people's attention and
Yeah,
following.
see, I'm very passionate designer, and I want to learn as much as I can about the construction of rugs. So I mentioned to David, the next time he goes abroad, I want to go with him because I want to see them in the factory looming the rugs and see exactly how this is made.
Because now you as a designer can go back and you understand that part.
Right.
And now you can make that much better of a design for that.
And I
Right.
think the general public should be aware of the amount of work, particularly a handmade rug that goes into the back end of from the minute, okay, we have a design, then all these designs have to be translated to a cartoon, which they are now reading from as they weave the rugs on the loom. And depending which area you're making the rugs, it's very interesting. For example, in India, in the city called Jaipur, they actually have a master weaver who sings out the colors. So all the colors are behind the weavers, and they pull from behind them to tie that particular knot. So they could have 3 or 4 looms, all with weavers listening to this chanting. And it's actually a beautiful thing. It's actually...
That I want to experience.
Yeah, I mean, and that pounding of knots, row after row, it's so familiar to me, hearing that noise. I wished everyone that bought a rug that say, oh, well, that's a bit too much money. If they only realize what goes into that rug has a soul. Every single part of it is real, and there's people's lives involved. And I think then people get a greater appreciation of what we do.
Yeah.
And I think we undersell ourselves, and we feel embarrassed to say that this is what the price is. Because if we actually make a great product at a fair price, then that enables us to keep doing what we do best.
Right.
You know, if we're viable, then that's a great thing. And it's just, it's one of those things, again, you know, if you have passion doing it, then you will always succeed.
I
And
think
you
if-
could tell David has a lot of passion.
Yeah. Well, I think if there's one thing that we can, share to students like from all around the world who will be watching this, and anybody in general, is that passion and like having that. You can't really teach that, but more about experience that.
And a smile on your face, because that's always the best. You know, I tell my girls that, you know, if you have an interview, I was always taught, you've got to go in the elevator and build up the biggest smile you can, and then just release it just as you get off. and that kind of really, that trace of the smile stays on your face, because you'll be amazed what a smile does.
Yeah, absolutely. Any last minute questions?
I don't think so. I think we're good.
Thank
Do
you
you have
guys.
anything you want to say? Are you?
Any last?
Well, thank you for
Comments?
coming to
Yes,
interview us.
Our pleasure.
If you could just say like how to keep up with you, websites, social media, anything like
Sure.
that.
Pavarini Design, we're on Instagram and Facebook, and I would greatly appreciate you following us on those platforms.
Awesome.
And we're samad.com. We're also obviously on Facebook and Instagram, and ditto, yes. Come and follow Samad as well.